It is Friday, and you know what that means.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 370 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, The F and Marks.
I'm Jay. He is.
I am, was, and always will be the brainless one. And, Jay, it wasn't really like a big news week this week for professional wrestling, but there is one thing I really just, off the top of the show, I really wanted to discuss that has been kind of festering on my mind for a few days, at least since Monday. Bronson Reed.
Okay.
They have been doing everything in their power to reestablish Bronson Reed after they've completely dropped the ball with him, not once but twice. Once after his call-up from NXT, then thusly getting released. Yes. And then since he's come back, he's had Intercontinental Championship matches and all that stuff. Great. I'm glad that Bronson Reed's getting these opportunities. Well, last week on Raw, like we talked about on last week's episode, we talked about how Bronson Reed came out and just tsunami'd the shit out of Seth Rollins. And I want to say that last week on the show when we were discussing that, I said, let's see how they proceed with this and see if they can make Bronson Reed a bigger heel. How are they going to do that to our boy? I mean, seriously. I can fathom them having, DIY get ripped to shreds by Jacob Fatu, because obviously name me a bunch of people who wouldn't get ripped to shreds by Jacob Fatu. Right. I have no problem if, like, Austin Theory, like, he got chokeslammed by Jelly Roll. It's fine. Why y'all going to do R-Truth like that? How are you going to do an F and Marks Hall of Famer like that? It was, again, I like what they're doing with Bronson Reed, that they're establishing him. And, devil's advocate, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, if you really wanted to get heat on him, yes, going after the former world champion is one thing. Having him crush the man that every WWE fan loves in R-Truth is the perfect way to do it. As a fan of R-Truth, who happens to be on my top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time, it was very much ago. It was very disheartening. I was very disappointed, and I'm glad that he only suffered some cracked ribs and some internal bruising from the attack. R-Truth, please get back. We miss you already. It's only been 5 days.
Yes.
But as a whole, as a wrestling fan, for as long as I've been a wrestling fan, I love what they're doing with Bronson Reed. I love that they're turning him into this destructive force, this guy that you're not supposed to take lightly. He's come a long way from telling everybody, I'm a real nice guy. Just ask my mom. My mom. But I've enjoyed it. I just really wish it wasn't at the expense of the GOAT R-Truth.
Yeah. All right. Chris Brown is wondering if you would rather they have sacrificed Sami Zayn.
Yes. But, I mean, I understand that Sami Zayn was in that 2 out of 3 falls Intercontinental title match with Braun Breaker. And again, on Raw, we've once again, for God only knows how many consecutive weeks, we still do not miss Bucky Beaver with the presentation and how they proceed with, producing the shows every Monday, Friday, and Tuesday.
Yeah.
I love that the scene where Braun Breaker had Sami on his shoulders and he's running towards the barricade and I mean, they're going to win Wrestler of the Year. Whoever the new producer for WWE is that replaced Bucky Beaver is going to win Wrestler of the Year Marquee Award for the F and Marks podcast.
All right.
It's been fantastic. And as somebody who's been in the wrestling industry, or not in the wrestling, you've been in the television industry for a very long time. You worked in productions.
Yeah.
You have to admit that the production quality of what we see every single week from WWE is incredible.
The thing with the Bucky Beaver era was they did a lot of good things. They really brought to the table a lot of good and interesting things. It's just the bad things were so incredibly bad that they detracted from all the other good things that they did. Right. Shaky camera, zoom in and out. Nobody ever needed that. There was plenty of action going on as it was. You didn't need to zoom in and out. if you want to go up and down maybe a time or two with the camera, okay, but you don't need to go up and down, in and out.
If they did the shaky camera for Earthquake, like they did with Dan Mastiff when he was in NXT UK, okay, I'm okay with the shaky camera for that. I don't need the shaky camera 20, 30, 40% of the time when I'm watching TV. Also, I don't need to see the constant panning to the fans. I'm not even going to mention the fact that they ruined the AJ Styles debut and the Edge return because they had to go show Johnny eating a pretzel in the fourth row.
Right.
It was stupid because I don't need to see those expressions. So whoever is now in charge of production for WWE, I could kiss them. I really could. Because they're such a big impact towards the quality of Monday Night Raw every single week that I actually, and I don't remember the last time I've said this, probably the Attitude Era. I'm actually excited to see Monday Night Raw every single week.
All right.
It's such good shit, pal.
Yeah.
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 All right.
So is there anything that you wanted to discuss right off the bat? Cousin Jake.
Well, I'll get into this briefly. AEW was in town this week in our area, and at the TV station I work at, Swerve Strickland showed up. And not only did I get the chance to meet the AEW champ, I also got to put the championship belt on my shoulder. Comparatively speaking,
I was going to ask.
To the Sheamus heavyweight big gold belt, which I believe was 2009 when I met him. AEW title's heavier.
Wow.
Yeah. And not way heavier, but like in talking to Swerve, he was like, yeah, I'll have a bag and it might have 10 pounds of stuff in. I put that belt in there and it automatically becomes 40 pounds. And
wow.
he is not making it up that it's 30 pounds because when I had the big gold belt on, they had told me it was 26. So like and they told me that it was 30 pounds after I had put it on my shoulder. I'm like, oh yeah, this is heavier than the heavyweight title. But the guy that was with Swerve and what have you, super, super nice, super cool, and just really wanted to give everybody who was at the station, having the experience of at least talking to him, and it felt like he genuinely wanted to be there to get people to, one, be aware of AEW, and two, go to the show. So yeah, it was cool to meet him. I got to go to the show that night, and there were certainly some highlights, but Swerve was awesome.
So he was one of the nicest guys you've met then?
Yes.
It doesn't surprise me. I've been a fan of Swerve since his days in Lucha Underground. A lot of the people, there's not really too many I can name that were let go by WWE over the last few years that I was very upset about. He was somebody I felt like they definitely dropped the ball with. As much as I sit here and I can hammer about how I feel about AEW, he is one of the very few in that company I'm very happy for because I really do like seeing him succeed in the wrestling business. He deserves to be the world heavyweight champion. He deserves to be spotlighted in one of the top spots. He is incredibly talented, and I'm glad that not only is he a great performer, but he's actually a great human being, so that makes me happy.
And on that note, Tim, yes, 100% fuck Sasha Banks. She was in the very first match of the evening for Dynamite. And like when she came out, I'm like, the match she had with Hikaru Shida was completely good, completely fine. But the fact that Shida had lost to Britt Baker a couple of weeks ago, and Britt Baker's the one that's going to be going against Mercedes at All In, it's like going, how did Hikaru Shida get the title shot first? Like,
how
How is this any different than when they did the same thing with Ruby Soho, where she fought against Jade
Yeah.
Cargill with the TBS championship, and then a month later she's fighting? I don't remember who it was the women's champion. I think it was Jamie Hayter, if I'm not mistaken. Although Hayter's been gone for a
That
minute.
sounds about right.
But like she ended up fighting the AEW women's champion like a month after losing the TBS title match, and I'm like, where is the logic behind all this?
At least with WWE, what they've done with Gunther is he made his way in and earned his spot to the heavyweight title, #1 contendership, and then winning. After he lost the IC strap, it's like going, hey, he should still be considered for something like King of the Ring. And then he went and won the tournament and got #1 contendership. That makes complete sense. But when you literally like lost the week before and then all of a sudden you're in a title match the next week, that's the dastardly Voldemort
Which is
level of booking.
Which is funny because that's exactly what they did with Roman after Roman lost the Intercontinental title. He dropped the belt to The Miz and was automatically put inside the Elimination Chamber. Watch Braun Strowman eliminated 4 out of the other 5 guys in the match, and then Roman beats Braun, and I puked the end.
Yeah.
Although, with the way they've been booking Roman lately, now that he's back and he's getting cheered out of the building, I have less of an issue with anything to do with Roman.
Right. But all in all, though, they did Dynamite Live and then they taped Rampage. And you know, I enjoyed myself for the most part. I think the highlight of the night for me was the triple threat match with Kyle O'Reilly, Orange Cassidy, and Roderick Strong. Best match of the night. I loved it. Spoiler alert, Rampage tonight. The main event involves Maximum Male Models. So top notch.
Oh, yeah.
They only looked mildly dead inside, having to use like the old gimmick that they had in WWE.
I mean, good for them for sticking around as a tag team, even though it was just as bad as watching Jinder Mahal in the 3-man band. There's nothing like seeing Jinder Mahal playing the air guitar with a turban on.
Yes. Or Jinder Mahal with his wrestling tights on a golf course. Jessica, thank you. Birthday was good. Everything's good. Appreciate that. Yeah.
And it's got to be the best part about you holding that title yesterday. Has to be the fact that, think about this. You now, Cousin Jay, have held the AEW World Heavyweight Championship before either of the Bucks or Jungle Turd.
Yes. That's great.
So you are more qualified to be a pillar than Jungle Boy Jack Perry. I am signing off on that right now.
Okay, I accept that.
It is you, Sheldon Cooper, Orange Cassidy, and whoever sells the Coke to Tony Khan. Those are the pillars of AEW.
I really wanted to, and I'll put it up on the Facebook page probably. Tony Khan did a couple of speeches. The one that he did in between Dynamite and Rampage was the best. It really was. I think he had a couple of lines in between the shows.
I mean, he was in Norfolk.
He was pretty coherent the first time around. The second time around, he was just rambling aimlessly. Yeah, it was great.
Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, it was exactly old man yelling at a cloud. And I don't know how we transition, but we really should get to this pretty close to the top. Afa of the Wild Samoans did pass away today. It's a bummer. I mean, the real end of their initial run of wrestling, where they were wrestling on a regular basis, I didn't get to see them that much as a kid. I saw a little bit of them, and my uncle was super into them. and would talk about them. And, you'd see the pictures of them with their crazy hair and what have you. But, just within a couple of months, you got both Afa and Sika who passed away. And Afa was actually more known. Like, I think the two of them had a wrestling school, but it was mostly Afa that was running things. But like Roman Reigns, Yokozuna, Batista, Billy Kidman, Tonka Kid. All those were trained by Afa. Also, when Mickey Rourke was training for the movie The Wrestler, Afa was the one who got him ready for it. And they had Nicolas Cage originally supposed to be the wrestler. And after a couple of weeks of training, he was like, screw this, I'm out of here. So, it's not only what he did back in the day. He was a 3-time WWF champ. He and his brother traveled the world and did a lot of great things for the sport of professional wrestling. But, a lot of the big names that came after them, I mean, you're talking Yokozuna for like the 90s. You're talking Batista for the 2000s. You're talking Roman Reigns 2010 to now. Like, you're talking about a big, long legacy outside of the fact that, he and his brother wrestled for like 30, 40 years. So just a bummer for that family.
And not to mention the fact that not only did they have all those wrestlers that they trained, but look at like all of the children and all of that, all the people from their family tree. You got the Usos, and you had Umaga, and you got, Jacob Fatu now. You got Haku. I mean, Haku is a pretty big name. I know, same thing with, with the Tonga Kid and everything, but like, just to think of all of the people that have now gotten into it. We're not talking about Nia Jax. All the people who have gotten into wrestling from the Samoan dynasty. It's just incredible. And for me, like, to remember Afa in the 90s when Rikishi, who is another one of his kids, or one of their kids, Rikishi, and I like it was Samu or Sione, I don't remember who it was, but they were the Head Shrinkers. And Afa was the manager of the Head Shrinkers when they first started in the 90s. So not only did he wrestle and train these guys, but he also worked as a manager.
Yep.
And, the Head Shrinkers were tag team champions.
So I love the Head Shrinkers, although I think I prefer them in their WCW days. I love the name the Samoan SWAT team.
Yeah. I've always been a huge fan of Rikishi Fatu. I've always enjoyed his work. The Head Shrinkers were a guilty pleasure tag team for me in the 90s. I just love watching them work.
I wouldn't even call them guilty pleasure for me. I love them. Like the matches they had with the Steiners in WCW were awesome. Actually, like the tag team division in WCW at that time was just absolutely ridiculous. After last week, after we talked about Kevin Sullivan and him passing away, and I talked about Norman the Lunatic, I was like going, you know what? I have to go back and watch the match between the two of them, the Falls Count Anywhere. All in all, that was, 9 months pre-Clash 13. And only actually booked a pretty solid show. That was the show where Sting got kicked out of the Horsemen and got injured the same night. But you had Doom against the Steiners, and Doom ended up losing, spoiler alert, and they had to take their masks off. So, I mean, that was a pretty big deal. We got the Tonga Kid, tying this all back into that, going against Dr. Death Steve Williams, and they had some really bad shtick that Dr. Death had to do, where he was like in the back of an ambulance and like trying to do like CPR, and he was banging away at the person on the gurney like the Hulk. And then he put his like head on the back windshield, almost like he was George the Animal Steel. And then when they had the Norman the Lunatic match with Kevin Sullivan, right before the match started, they kind of had Norman the Lunatic acting like George the Animal Steele. But
I have not had a chance to get to watch that yet. I am hoping that at some point this weekend I'm going to get to it, and hopefully a little write-up comes with it. And if there's any other matches you'd like, maybe I've not seen that anybody, and this goes for all the marks out there watching this podcast. If there's any matches you think I've not seen that you think I would be thoroughly entertained, like Norman the Lunatic versus Kevin Sullivan, please send them my way. I'm always interested in incredible matches. I can only watch Clash 13 so many times, and that's not saying it as a negative thing.
So, on that note, there was a tag match with Flying Brian and the Z-Man going against the Mod Squad. The end of the match was the reverse crossbody off the second rope. Fusing that into Clash 13, which means that move that the Z-Man did was probably meant to end the match. Except for Primetime Brian Lee was nowhere in the neighborhood. He was out there hanging out at Saturn, not Perry Saturn. He was at the planet Saturn, while the Z-Man was here on Earth trying to do a high crossbody.
Hey, man, just remember, Primetime Brian Lee, once upon a time, was the other Undertaker.
He was the other Undertaker, and wasn't he like Skull or 8-Ball?
I want to say he was in the Disciples of Apocalypse, if I'm not mistaken. If I have to really go into the Rolodex of the brainless one and just useless wrestling knowledge, I'm pretty sure he was in the Disciples of Apocalypse with Crush and Skull and 8-Ball and Tony Khan's other favorite wrestler, Cokehead.
Right. Yeah. Circling back to Alpha, though, he left a big, long, lasting legacy. He had a great career in ring, but I think the people under his learning tree will continue to do stuff for the wrestling industry for a long time. Yes.
I agree. And just think of all the next generation of stars that are going to come in here. And you know who we forgot was The Rock. Rock, the biggest name of the Samoan dynasty.
Yeah.
The most electrifying man in all of entertainment.
Yeah.
Dwayne. But since we did mention Alpha, it's a segue. I hate the fact that it is a segue, but it is a segue. I heard a report earlier this week that there was two wrestlers in particular that WWE had to keep separated when one of them was still in the company. And that happened to be Roman Reigns and Matt Riddle. Apparently, Matt Riddle went around telling people that he could beat up Roman Reigns in a real fight, to the point where Roman Reigns and Matt Riddle, whenever they were together, had to be separated. It really just does paint the picture of what kind of a scumbag Matt Riddle was, or is, probably still is, because I know he had the issues with his wife, and he divorced her, and there was all this shit, and he had the drug problems, and how do you sit there and you go after all these people? You tell Brock Lesnar you're going to kick his ass. You tell Goldberg you're going to kick his ass. Brock Lesnar went out on live television during a premium live event during the Elimination Chamber and told Matt Riddle to keep his name out of his fucking mouth. Now we find out that Roman Reigns was going to beat the shit out of Matt Riddle if they were together. What are your thoughts on that they had to keep Matt Riddle and Roman Reigns separated because Matt Riddle couldn't keep his mouth shut?
I mean, I know that Matt Riddle, his whole thing, whether it was calling out Brock or calling out other people, was he wanted to end up with a match with them. So I think he thought by ticking them off in some way, shape, or form, that would make the dastardly Voldemort think like, oh, yes, hey, this guy is just nuts and he's just going for it, so we're going to give him opportunities. And it's like, but when you're messing with the guy, like Brock Lesnar, like, loves the dastardly Voldemort. Loves him like a father. Well, if you tick him off, that's not going to do the right kind of pissing off to get to the spot you want to. But, he just comes off as spoiled child who trying to like whip his thing out of his pants and say, "I've got the biggest one, come
Bruh.
get me." And even though Riddle has the MMA background, I don't know. Football player might be able to do something in something that's more closer to a street fight than a grappling match in like a UFC cage or even a WWE ring. I mean, why am I blanking on his name?
Gable Stevenson?
No.
Monty Brown?
Jonathan Jones's brother, who was on the Patriots.
Oh,
Steven
Chandler.
Jones?
Chandler Jones.
Chandler Jones. Chandler more or less was like going, yeah, I think I could kick my brother's ass. And it's like John Jones is basically universally seen as the greatest UFC fighter of all time because nobody's even really come close to beating him. Even though sometimes he seems to take things he's not supposed to, but nobody's really come close to beating Bones Jones.
He's one of my personal favorites.
But Chandler Jones said I could take my brother.
Side note: Chandler Jones was the guy for the Raiders who returned that awful lateral that the Patriots tried having against Las Vegas or the Raiders a couple of years ago, where I laughed hysterically for 20 minutes after it happened.
Yeah,
Sorry.
That was the one that was that Gronk on the field.
No, that was against Miami. It's happened a couple of times to the Patriots since we've been down here. It wasn't Jimmy G because Jimmy G never played for the Patriots.
Yes, he did.
Well, not like he didn't start for the Patriots like
a handful of times he did.
Oh, I think it was Mac Jones who was the quarterback.
I like Mac Jones, man. Oh wait, he's on a different team, right?
Yeah, he's on the all elite Jaguars now. Went from being the 15th overall pick in the draft 2 years ago to being Trevor Lawrence's backup.
Hey, all right.
And yet we can't get rid of Daniel Jones, but what do I know?
I like Danny Dimes, man.
And I do not like Danny Dimes. I want Tommy Cutlets as the quarterback, but with Riddle though, I just really wish that he would mature. There was a part of me that was like, oh, maybe he can come back. No, I don't really want him back now. He's starting to get into that like Disco Inferno, Vince Russo. I don't ever want to see them back, and Val Venus even. I don't want to see you back in a fucking WWE ring, Ronda Rousey. More like Ronda Lousy. Ugh. But I really wish that we had gotten Brock Lesnar and Matt Riddle in a ring because I am convinced that Brock Lesnar would have literally ripped him to shreds. He would have destroyed. He would have done to him what I wanted Brock Lesnar to do to Hulk Hogan a couple years ago, where he destroyed him and turned him into dust.
Right.
Brother.
Mike Rainey, I believe that Roman is scheduled to be there tonight on SmackDown. Clearly last week when he made his appearance, he didn't say anything. So we have yet to hear from the OTC, the original tribal chief, about why he decided to do this. I don't know with the death of his uncle if this is going to change anything, but I'm going to guess, hey, that there's no wake, there's no funeral. Okay, we're going to go and do the thing that our elder would want us to do.
Yes. And I love the fact that they're keeping him and Jacob separated from each other because Jacob really should not be taking any bumps for Roman right now.
Well, Brainless one, I think, is going to have to reconnect, but I'm guessing he was going to get into talking about how well that they booked Jacob Fatu to keep him strong, to keep him looking good, and just build him up without doing kind of either the 50-50 booking or just the idea of having him getting beaten down so quickly in his stint in WWE. If you want to really turn him into this heel monster, he'll be there. He'll do great, and we'll see what they do going forward. All right, going to get the brainless one here in a moment. Yeah.
Nothing infuriates me more than when I'm in the middle of a podcast and I get a number that says scam caller. It infuriates me to no end because it's happened so much. And it's like, I can understand if it's an emergency with a family member coming in and trying to call me. And it's like, okay, I understand getting bumped from that. But when you're some scam artist trying to sell me car insurance or to tell me that I have $1,000 charge on a card that don't even have exist on a system that I have not bought in over 12 years. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I apologize. Where were you?
You were talking about Jacob Fatu and how they had booked him so well.
They have done such a masterful job at booking him since he came in. He literally on his first night went in and destroyed not only two of the biggest faces in WWE, he took out the WWE champion as well. The top face, the number one baby face. And they've done everything they could to just everything they've done with him booking wise has been perfect. I have really, really enjoyed his work to the point where he's now vastly jumping up my power rankings as one of my personal favorites in WWE. I'm sorry, Sheamus, you're not going to be holding on to that crown much longer. And yes, I thought it was going to be somebody like Pete Dunne or Gunther that was going to surpass Sheamus. It's going to be Jacob Fatu, man. I'm telling you, Jay, I've never been more impressed with somebody this early on in their run in WWE like I have been with Jacob Fatu. The closest, and it's funny, because the closest was somebody in his own family, and that was Umaga. I loved Umaga. Yes, I know that he was once Jamal from 3 Minute Warning, but as Umaga, he was just, one of my all-time favorites. I loved Umaga. He was definitely one of my favorite Samoans. Jacob has a lot of that in him, where he's just this monster. And you want to talk about presentation, the song, just the aura of him, just everything about him. They've done such a great job, which is why they had him do the kayfabe leg injury when he did that spot at Money in the Bank against Cody Rhodes, where he looked like he messed up his leg because they wanted to keep him. SummerSlam. SummerSlam. And they wanted to keep him and Roman away from each other. Jacob Fatu right now does not need to take a bump from Roman Reigns. It's just one of those things where it's like you have the irresistible force in the immovable object, and you don't want them to clash. I have loved everything they have done with Jacob Fatu. Absolutely loved it so far. And leave it to Tonga Loa to not only botch a low blow, miss the corner in the match with Cody Rhodes, but my God, he doesn't even know how to hold up the World Tag Team Championships. You cannot be... Jay, is it Tonga Loa, or did they bring in the brainless one to be part of the bloodline? The only reason Solo Sikoa is not the lowest ranked member of the bloodline in my power rankings is because Tonga Loa exists. Because Jacob Fatu has already surpassed. Jacob Fatu surpassed him his debut. Tama Tonga, yes, he's definitely done it, but I've been a fan of Tama Tonga since his New Japan days. So it's just crazy to me. But I love what they're doing with the bloodline. I cannot wait to see what happens when they bring in Hikalua. How is he going to be brought into this? Is he going to be part of, Solo Sikoa's bloodline? Is he going to be part of Roman's bloodline? Are we going to have two different bloodlines? Is Bloodline 2.0 going to become something else? Like they were talking about turning the Spooky Pals into a different name, not being the Judgment Day, to being like Street Trash. And then they decided against it. And then they gave whatever Sonya Deville's stable one of the worst stable names in the history of wrestling. It was so bad, I don't even remember what it was. It's awful.
Gags the Clown asked, what did Disco Inferno do?
He's just a piece of shit. That's all he is. He's just a piece of shit, and he thinks that he's a big deal in the wrestling industry when even Jeff Jarrett, of all people, have drawn more money, albeit it was $30, but he's drawn more money than the Disco Inferno. Gags, it's nothing personal. It's just that in all of my years of being a wrestling fan, and that is including watching WCW for a significant amount of time, because I did enjoy WCW, thanks to Mick Foley and Big Van Vader for their classic rivalry of the early 90s. I love that shit. I could eat it up. But I can safely tell you that during the entirety of the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars, I wanted to see Goldberg. And this is just WCW. I wanted to see Booker T. I wanted to see Sting, Bret Hart, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. I wanted to see Chris Jericho when he was there, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, Arn Anderson. Hell, even Glacier, just because that entrance is still top
the
five.
entrance is top 5.
Top 5 all time. It's not even close. Him, Mark Henry, and The Undertaker are all in the top 5. You can't argue with me with any of them.
But by the way, entrance song, very underrated, probably under talked about. Doom's entrance music was awesome.
Oh, yes, it was. Great tag team entrance. But to go back to it, I can safely tell you in all the years that I've watched, I have never said, I can't wait to watch the Disco Inferno. I can't even, we've had this conversation about a lot of people in wrestling. Can you even name me a meaningful, important match the Disco Inferno was ever in?
You know, as much as the person that gets my ire these days, equivalent to what yours is for Disco Inferno, that is one Mercedes Moné, a.k.a. Sasha Banks. At least she had moments. You know, her and Bayley having the 30-minute Iron Woman match, you know.
Take over
and I think Sasha was also in the first ever Women's Hell in a Cell match, or maybe it was the second one.
I think it was the first
Either way, like, she has had some moments.
Even her and Bianca main eventing WrestleMania a couple of years ago was awesome. That match was great.
Yeah.
But it was more of a showcase of what Bianca was capable of doing than it was about Mercedes. I'm sorry. I can't with her. I can't justify a woman getting paid $15 million a year from a coked out fiend when she got fired or she walked out of 2 companies. 2 times she walked out of a company.
And I have to say, I completely loved what Eric Bischoff said about her. Every time she talks, it makes me want to watch less. She does more to damage her image every time she opens her mouth.
Like I said, the 3 ratings killers for AEW are as follows. Number 3, Chris Jericho, whatever freaking stupid ass gimmick thing he's doing now. He's the learning tree. This was after he was the Wizard. This was after he was Le Champion. Number 2, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné. Yes, she is an incredible in-ring talent. I'll give her that. She is awful. How somebody who went from WWE to another wrestling promotion and just fell off a cliff. I'm not saying that she was one of the best on the mic that they've ever had. Far from it. But at least she was serviceable in WWE. And oh, by the way, her main writer who was helping her with her promos in WWE now works for AEW. But the number 1 ratings scare away, the people who turn away the fans the most are the Young Bucks. And there's nothing you can do to tell me otherwise. It's factual information.
I got to see all 3 of them on Dynamite.
See,
on the ratings note, Dynamite was the number 1 in adults 18 to 45, which is one of the categories that advertisers really like on cable on Wednesday evening. They were at just over 700,000 viewers, so they did all right. But, I mean, they started the show with Mercedes and ended it with the Bucks.
Again, I don't care what Chris Jericho does. Chris Jericho would really have to do something so... I don't even care how bad he has tarnished his legacy with this stupid learning tree, with the stupid FTW championship, and everything he's done in AEW has been stupid. I will not remove that man from my Rushmore. So he, of all of them, gets away with it. That's why he was 3rd of the 4 that I mentioned that just absolutely killed the ratings. Because I don't care. It's still Chris Jericho. I don't know how I would feel if the start of the show was Mercedes Moné, and then they ended it up with the absolute worst tag team that has ever stepped foot inside of a wrestling ring. And that says a lot because Marty Jannetty has been part of more than one tag team.
He was a tag team champion.
He was a tag team champion.
Val Snow.
Yes, with Leif Cassidy.
Tim, so in the chat, they're talking about who's the worst. Gags the Clown said Jade Cargill is the worst. And then we have other folks saying Nia Jax. And then Tim said, I'd rather watch Nia Jax and Jade Cargill before Sasha fucking Banks. And I quote.
Does anybody realize that tonight they're going to do the World Heavyweight Women's WWE Championship ceremony to celebrate the fact that Nia Jax pulled off the win that she did not deserve to win? She's going to have some kind of ceremony tonight to celebrate her championship win, and it's going to be awful. Absolutely awful. There's not going to be anything good about this. I'm telling you right now. I'm about as excited to see. And let me be brutally honest with you and everybody. I can safely tell you right now, if you really want to know who the worst, it's Nia Jackson. It's not even close. I would rather. It's comparing apples to oranges because at least I would rather watch Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné wrestle a match than have to watch Nia Jax wrestle a match. And I'd say they're about on par with each other when it comes to promos.
I was going to say, I think I'd rather watch a Nia promo than a Sasha promo, but
I wouldn't watch either one of them. I'd rather ram my head against the wall than have to listen to either one of those two cut a promo.
You didn't notice that I was reading the vomit bag. That's what I would rather watch, I think, than that.
Oh, God. Oh, that's
You're welcome.
Thank you. I almost died. That's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Speaking of almost dying, it has come out by not one, but two different sources this week that the dastardly Voldemort's health has been deteriorating. First, it came out earlier this week that Linda McMahon said that Vince's health was deteriorating. And granted, coming from Linda McMahon, you can only think that maybe she's pulling a Hillary and she's trying to do what Hillary tried doing with Bubba and just finish off her husband. But also this week, I think it was either yesterday or today, that Vince McMahon's lawyers came out and also confirmed that Vince McMahon's health has been deteriorating since he got ousted from WWE. Which is funny, because if memory serves me correctly, and granted, this is coming from somebody with zero brain, so zero memory, but if memory serves me correctly, Cousin Jay, didn't the brainless one, after Vince was officially permanently ousted from WWE, didn't I say that Vince was going to feel the same fate that one Joe Paterno felt after that whole bullshit thing at Penn State, where Joe Paterno was standing on the sidelines in like September and October, was taken out of the job, and within months he was dead after he lost the job?
Yeah, you did say something like that. Although I thought, like, when I read the lawyer's statement, that the lawyer's statement was more of that he, no, Vince is fine, nothing to see here, But the last time we've actually seen him, I think in public, was when they did the ringing of the bell at the New York Stock Exchange in 2023, and he had a cane because he had that spinal surgery, or maybe it was January 2024. Yeah, he had this spinal surgery in 2023. We saw him in January 2024, and it was a few short weeks after that he was gone. But
I'm still waiting for him to show up to court in the iron lung because he can't make it to court normally.
Yeah, yes,
because he had to sell the neck injury when he went for court for steroids.
Yes.
I mean, I could have read that. I read the headline wrong, but I could have swore that that's what the headline said. That his lawyer confirmed it, and I was like, oh, that sucks. I mean, not for nothing. I'm not saying I condone what Vince McMahon or the dastardly Voldemort has been doing behind the scenes and everything like that. But without Vince McMahon this podcast doesn't exist without Vince McMahon shoving a freaking blonde Irishman named Hulk Hogan down everybody's throats in the 80s, telling me to take my vitamins and say my prayers. I'm not watching wrestling. I don't think I am. I don't know if I would just be watching territorial wrestling. It'd be different.
I watched it all. I watched all wrestling that was in front of my eyes.
I say that, but yes, this is a guy who was watching WWF, WCW, World Class, because it was on ESPN when I would get home from school.
AWA was for me when I was growing up.
And ECW. So I say this, but yes, I would probably. I just contradicted myself. I would probably be watching one of the territories. Probably.
I enjoy when you argue against yourself. It's fun.
It's fun because it's me and it makes sense.
Yeah.
I would probably be directed to wherever Roddy Piper was. My guess.
Yes. We've been spending a little bit of time with AEW, and there were a couple of newsworthy notes that I would like to talk about. They have apparently seen what WWE does with international dates. It looks like that's what they're attempting to do for themselves. They've got All In coming up in a few weeks, and it sounds like in 2025, not only are they going to have All In the United States in Texas, it sounds like they're trying to get a stadium show in Australia, and they're trying to figure out what venue they're going to have. Hey, you know what? International wrestling fans just like to watch wrestling. If AEW can sit there and help build their global brand, I'm all for it. When you were talking about Jericho before, I had no problem with everything he was doing at the beginning of his run in AEW. Quite honestly, he legitimized AEW and has allowed a lot of performers to get contracts and continue to work. As crappy as the product has become, as far as like storylines and things of that nature, the in-ring product is still, for the most part, really good. So Jericho's all right with that for me. Anything AEW can do to hopefully grow their brand and hopefully continue to have more performers come to them and make a good living. There are a lot of people who put their asses on the line, quite literally, to entertain people. At least they're getting paid now instead of being in like small bingo halls and getting paid a hot dog and a bag of popcorn.
Or as I found out when you worked at Hampton Roads Championship Wrestling, $35.
Right.
When you find out that one of the wrestlers is paying more than that to train just to wrestle in that one match, it's kind of funny.
Great hibachi.
The great hibachi. Hibachi, because he botches too.
We're just going to go with great hibachi.
That works. They want to expand. They want to grow. They need to do three things. Number one, Tony Khan needs to shut the fuck up. Number two, the Young Bucks need to be stripped of the titles of EVPs. And number three, all of their fans need a lobotomy. Those are the three reasons why nobody watches. I stopped watching because of the Bucks. I have been pushed away for years to stop watching it because of their fans. And now watching freaking Herb Abrams Jr. hookers and blowing himself every single week. He's going back out and his WWE's tampering him again. Are you fucking kidding me? They need to get him off. Just stop. Tony, just shut the fuck up. I'm saying this as nicely as humanly possible I could say to you, dude. Just shut the fuck up, Tony Khan. You're not doing anything to improve your brand. Because every time you open your mouth, every time one of your fan base goes after, the casual fans that you're trying to bring in, you lose people. I can only imagine those diehard Big Bang Theory fans who had just finished the episode, but they're still on their phones, and they look up and they see a cowboy with butterflies on his jeans. Or they see two guys that look like homeless hillbillies that are calling themselves EVPs and tag team champions.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Godwins.
Or yeah. Or the fact that they got a guy who looks like your drunk aunt as your FTW champion. Tell me Chris Jericho does not look like everyone's drunk aunt.
He does.
Thank you. I still love Chris Jericho. I don't care. I still love Chris Jericho. He has not plummeted on my top 10 rush. I'm off my Rushmore.
On your Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
So one thing that is interesting about this, hey, they did All In last year in London.
Yeah.
They're doing it again in London this year. Next year they're not, and Tony Khan promised 2026 they're coming back to London. Which made me think to myself, why would they be avoiding London around the August time when it's kind of become an annual thing? Do you think it's possible that we get SummerSlam in London in 2025?
It's very possible. I don't rule anything out, and I wouldn't be surprised if after they did the London show in SummerSlam in London, that they're like, oh, by the way, WrestleMania 42, is here in London. Or 43.
With John Cena. Oh, wait. No, he's going to be in Las Vegas. Anyway.
But I still think that even when he's retired, we're still going to see John Cena. There's no way we're not going to ever see John Cena. Yeah, it's John Cena.
He's not going to, he says he's retiring from, having matches. There's nothing stopping him from getting physical. There's nothing stopping him from showing up. So
he's, no matter what, he is at the point, he is goated at this point. No matter what John Cena does, they're going to cheer him out of the fucking building every time he shows up because he has actually earned that right to get cheered out of the building after the fans were chanting that were singing along to his song, John Cena sucks. Loved it, but
And we did find out this week, John Cena has signed on for 36 dates for his retirement tour that he says will span the globe, and that he's hoping that London is part of it. Again, feeding a little bit into the fire of SummerSlam in London. Maybe Hulk Hogan could go and main event that sucker again.
To be fair, they could be doing Clash at the Castle in London again. And it could be, and all we know, it could be John Cena versus Sheamus. And I really do feel like I dropped the ball. I really feel like that I should have came up with people I'd like to see in my top 10 fight John Cena in his farewell tour. Honest to goodness, the really just like 2 or 3 names that really stick out for me that I really want to see him wrestle in this tour when he retires. Braun Breaker. Like to see him put over Breaker to kind of give him the nice rub on his way out. Love to see him against Gunther. And call me nostalgic. I want to see Orton and Cena again. Why wouldn't I want to see Orton and Cena? But it's great. I'm glad that Cena is going to have a proper farewell tour. I really truly hope that a lot of these arenas do with Cena when he comes in there, the way that a lot of these ball clubs do in baseball when the player comes out and says, yeah, I'm going to have the farewell tour, like the Mariano Rivera's and the David Ortiz and my actual twin, Miguel Cabrera, who was also born on April 18th, 1983. They all had it, they all had those moments, and they gave him all the gifts. I want that. I want Cena to get his flowers during this entire run because we have not seen anyone like John Cena since Hulk Hogan. Nothing against Steve Austin. Absolutely nothing against Steve Austin. But we're talking about longevity on top. Austin being at the top during the hottest period of professional wrestling is impressive in its own right. Austin is my all-time favorite. I will never say a bad thing about Steve Austin. What John Cena was able to do as the face of WWE for as long as he was the face of WWE, even longer than Hulk Hogan's, if I'm not mistaken. Because I think Hogan
if you're talking just specific WWF time, yeah. Even if you put Hogan's kind of separate runs together, it's still not quite as long.
So for me, John Cena deserves to have a proper hand him his flowers, have this great retirement tour. I am on board with this, and I'm excited to see it. And I'm usually one of those ones that I don't get excited for the following year. I'm actually excited for 2025 because I think it's going to be a lot of fun what they do with John Cena.
So you did mention Orton, and in the news this week, Randall Keith Orton has officially signed a new 5-year deal with the company that will keep him there until 2029. What are your thoughts, Brainless One, on that?
It's about as much of a no-brainer as the Red Sox re-signing Jason Varitek after the 2004 season. You got a captain, you got your leader, you need to bring him back. He is the most important person in that locker room because of the fact that he has the longevity that he has. Randy Orton, for the fact that he has been in WWE for over 20 years, is still relatively young. I know that in the grand scheme of things, like, yeah, he's in his mid-40s. He's been in there for
He'll be 50 by the time this contract is up. And that's why he said his end game was to get at least 250 as a full-time performer. Like, he does not want to go on a super light schedule. I'm here to wrestle. I'm here to put people over. I'm here to help them grow.
I'm beyond thrilled. I love Randy Orton. I almost put his shirt on, but I was like, I gotta do Cena. I'm very happy. And on top of that, I found out last week after the podcast, after SmackDown, I found out that Randy Orton was not the only one who recently just signed a new contract. Found out that a new champion also got a new contract. Somebody who is well-deserving, who has defied the odds and has become the big-name player, and that man is L.A. Knight.
Yeah!
LA Knight also got a brand new contract extension. I don't know what the terms are for the deal, but I was very happy to see LA Knight actually get that new contract. So very happy for him. I'm glad he's a champion like he said he was going to be. Kudos to both him and Randy Orton for getting those long-term extensions.
Yeah.
Very happy for both.
Cool.
Yeah.
We did get the return of a former champion to WWE this week. One, Mark Henry.
Oh, that's right.
Mark Henry showed up with his son, who recently signed with the company, and they showed him and his son in the crowd, and it was good to see the world's strongest man back on WWE TV.
With the world's strongest son.
Yes. I just want to hear his song again. That's one of my favorite theme songs of all time.
I may cry when Mark Henry comes back and comes out to his song and all that stuff with the whole pomp and circumstance. As long as Def Rebel doesn't ruin his entrance like he's done to everybody that's outside of the bloodline. Never forget him for what he did to Sheamus.
Sad.
But yeah, I was very excited to see Mark Henry. I'm always happy to see Mark Henry. As great
do you
as he
believe
was,
that this means we will get more Mark Henry, or do you think this was a one-off?
I think we're going to see Mark Henry kind of transition into maybe the pre-show type of deal. I don't know who else they have. I know they have Big E Langston. I don't know what they're going to keep him on there. I'd love to because I've been enjoying Big E on the pre-shows. I could see Mark Henry coming home. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up at the Performance Center working with the talent down there. He's incredibly smart, very great eye for talent too. Finding out that he was the one who brought in Daniel Bryan to WWE. He was the one that got Bianca Belair into WWE. I'm sorry, Daniel Bryanson.
Thank you.
Sorry, I apologize. But I saw the interview and he called him Daniel Bryan, so I'm my fault. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you were, yeah.
But he's more of an asset to the wrestling industry than a lot of other people out there. I would love to see Mark Henry. I'd love to see him more on TV. I just love Mark Henry. So I would love to see more Mark Henry.
Okay.
And hell, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up in the corner of his son when his son got in, because what's a better rub than having your Hall of Fame dad in your corner? Just ask Glock Anderson.
Yeah. So Chris Brown, Big E said as long as that bone in his neck does not heal, he's not going to wrestle ever again. Mark Henry also has a medical issue that will prevent him from having another wrestling match, because at one point in AEW, he's like, I want to have another match. And then he ended up going to a doctor after a couple things happened, and more or less was told, like, you should not do this. I don't know if it's quite like Triple H bad, where it's like, oh, my heart might shock in the middle of a match, and that wouldn't look good. I don't think it's quite that bad, but it was something where Mark Henry's like, it's not worth it for me to even really attempt anything like that.
If they just give me one more World's Strongest Slam, just once, like when they bust out all the legends and he goes out there and just slams somebody, just give me that. That's all I want. I don't want him to risk, jeopardizing his long-term health for a wrestling match. But if they can give me like one World's Strongest Slam, I'd be one happy individual.
Arn Anderson was forced to retire in the 90s because of neck surgery. That has not stopped him from doing the greatest spine buster in the world into the 2020s.
2024, he still delivers the best spine buster I've ever seen. Ron Simmons is a close second, though.
I enjoyed the Ron Simmons pick him up, and
because it was the difference between them two is because Arn Anderson was just so fluid, crisp, and it was just perfect. Ron Simmons, when he spine busted something, it looked like it hurt.
Yeah, it looked like destruction.
Yeah, they were my two favorite spine busters. I could watch those two spine buster everybody.
Yeah.
Give me a compilation of them. I'll watch them all.
All right. So we got that. One thing that didn't happen last week that was supposed to was AJ Styles. AJ Styles, at least in dirt sheets, I don't think WWE promoted it, but was supposed to show up on Friday Night SmackDown and didn't. What's being said is that they have their creative plans in place for Bash in Berlin, and I think that adding AJ would have just been an unnecessary thing in the mix for what they're trying to do. Because, I mean, having SummerSlam, you're kind of midway point between, WrestleMania to WrestleMania.
Right.
And then having another show within a few weeks, it'd be tough to cram him into any storyline. Because, I mean, the last time we saw him, he was losing Cody Rhodes in
I Quit match.
Yeah. So.
And I think at this point in AJ's career, yes, I'm sure he wouldn't mind being out there, but I'm sure that if he's home with his family, he's not going to complain.
Sure.
Especially
he's no spring chicken.
Yes, he's much older, not much older, but he's older than the brainless one.
He's my age, so.
He's not Dom Mysterio's age, people.
Right. Speaking of Dom Mysterio, he was on the Impulsive podcast a couple of days ago. And Dom was talking about how they toured Japan and how great it was. And he was just saying to Logan Paul, like, hey man, you should come. It's really great over there. You should come. And then, I had other things. I couldn't get over there, blah, 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 blah. And then Dom says, are you even allowed? Are you shadow banned from going to Japan? The fact that Dom went there, I'm like, and he did it in such a friendly manner that is seething as it felt like Logan Paul was about it. He couldn't say or do anything against it.
And he also told him, he's like, I don't understand why you were U.S. champion. He goes, you're not even one of us. He goes, you're just a guy that doesn't even wrestle. He goes, you just kind of show up. And Logan Paul's like, man, I take that seriously. He goes, I don't care if you take it seriously or not. He goes, you're taking spots from other people who've been doing this all the time. I'm sorry, and Logan Paul then came out and said, I told Triple H that in 2025 I want to spend more time in the ring. Fine. Prove that everybody that's what you want to do. I'm sorry, you're still a scumbag, and I don't want to see anything. I don't really give a shit about you. Yes, you've learned how to wrestle, and you're better than 90% of the wrestlers in AEW. Congratulations. You're still a scumbag. all that appearance from Dom on the Logan Paul podcast was he won himself a Marquee Award. I have now probably gotten half of my awards already figured out, and it's August.
Right. I mean, for me, I had my mark-out moment of the year on January 1st.
I think everybody had their mark-out moment of the year, January 1st. I changed mine, quickly, and then changed it back to what it was because Def Rebel just ripped my heart out and spat all over it. But yeah, it was. I enjoyed Dom on that show. I'm glad that they did it. He is just absolutely killing it. Yeah. I'm impressed with Dom Mysterio, considering where he was a couple of years ago.
Sure. But, I just thought it was funny that Dom just, no fear and just...
Not bad for a guy who only eats chicken tenders and fries every meal of his life.
Right. Couple of injury updates here. Dakota Kai, that poor woman, she needs new knees.
Just
she tore her meniscus, and she is going to be on the shelf for the next 2 to 2.5 months. So, poor Dakota Kai. I really like her. I think she has. She's good in the ring. I think she worked really well with damage control. I thought the things that they did overall were really good. But every time it seems like Dakota Kai is starting to get some momentum, things are going well, they go and do something like this.
It is a shame because I, too, am a fan of Dakota Kai. She has one of my favorite heel turns, more recent heel turns in WWE. And if she needs knees, whatever you do, do not talk to Tegan Knox.
Yeah, and don't talk to Shea Ralph.
Or Shea Ralph. She has no more L's to make ACLs or MCLs or PCLs.
Right.
She just has ACs and PCs.
So we have Dakota Kai, who's going to be out for the next couple of months. And there was a bit of an update with Raquel Rodriguez. I know Tim's favorite.
Rackback.
Or as Tim calls her, back pose. She's been dealing with, what's it called? MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, which caused her to have anaphylactic, allergic episodes. I mean, I remember when they went to Australia and her face was just all
red,
puffed up.
Yep.
Anybody dealing with a medical issue like that's just a bummer. They don't want to be sick. They want to be chasing their dream like she was. And she's like, my skin and just myself in general, I feel better than I have in several months. And there are reports that maybe we see back pose fairly soon.
I can hardly contain my excitement.
We're going to get a triple threat match between her, Nia Jax, and Jade Cargill. Whoever doesn't get injured is the heavyweight champion.
Y'all got to stop with this Jade Cargill slander. I understand that she's still a little green in the ring, but I'm not for this Jade Cargill slander. She's a bigger deal.
She hasn't injured anybody yet, like Nia did.
Yes, and she hasn't injured her hole either.
My hole. Tim, that could not be the worst idea. He's like, could back pose be Liv Morgan's heater? I mean, right now, Dom is her heater, but...
You're not going to get more heat than what you're getting from Dom unless you bring in Dom's illegitimate stepmother.
Yes.
Excuse me! I said excuse me! Yeah. It sounded less like Vicky Guerrero, more like Chris Jericho asking the ref to his opponent submits. Ask him! Ask him! Ask him! Again, I love Jericho.
Yeah. Good stuff.
So glad that we mentioned the rack back, too. It's been a while. Forgot she existed.
Yeah. So, for my notes, that's about what I got.
That's all I got for my notes, Cousin Jay. All I have left is my top 10 list.
All right.
It's a shame what happens with these weeks where there's not a lot of newsworthy notes, so we're not, just constantly, it's kind of nice and refreshing. But I do have a top 10 list, and again,
All
I
right.
wish I had gone with John Cena's top 10 people I'd like to see fight Cena before he retires. But
Well, you got another few months before you have to put that sucker in.
I think I will get that ready for 2025. But I will tell you this much. This week for my top 10 list, I have the top 10 worst people in the internet wrestling community.
Oh, awesome.
Now, a couple of these are fan bases, but I did find some personal accounts, including some that I really cannot freaking stand. So, the top 10 worst people in the internet wrestling community, and thank God I was not part of anybody's list, so I am taking that as a W. Number 10, any Sasha Mercedes fans at all. They're awful. Number 9, all the Cody Rhodes haters. All the people going out there and saying this guy doesn't look like a champion. He looks like a star. He's their biggest baby face. At the end of the day, the wrestling neckbeards that live in their parents' cellar dwellers in their parents' basements need to realize that it isn't just about us. It's about the younger generation, because once upon a time, us fans who are the fans now were once fans cheering on the Hulk Hogans and the Ultimate Warriors and the John Cenas of this world. You have to realize that you have to get that next batch of fans to come in before you can, so that the wrestling industry can stay a vibrant thing. You need those young fans. So that's why they're there. Now we get to the more personal accounts. Number 8, his name is WWE Gareth, who is a supposed WWE stockholder, which means he probably owns stocks, like he spent money on stocks, but calls himself a shareholder. Like he's an important person on the board of directors. And all he is a freaking neck-bearding butt dweller. Number 7, wow, amazing. I haven't talked about this motherfucker in months, even years even, but yet I mentioned him again on the podcast, the Disco Inferno. Need not say anymore. Number 6, Steve Carrier from Ringside News. This is the same Steve Carrier that got arrested for, I think it was assault. It was either assault or a DUI. He also went and discriminated against Nyla Rose because she is a dude that is wrestling as a woman. But this is also the guy that went and made a comment about the AEW women's division and actually united the entire AEW women's division to the point where he was on his show playing the victim. This was after many tweets that he had to these wrestlers backpedaling all of his comments. He's fucking useless. Number 5, speaking of useless, he may or may not have been a writer for the WWE magazine. He may or may not have been a writer for WWE Creative. He may or may not have been a writer for WCW and for TNA Impact. He might be the reason why we have TNA. The Brawl for All and the Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. Number 5, shit stain. Vince Russo. Bro, come on, bro. Number 4, this is the greatest anomaly in the history of Twitter name things. This guy needs to get brought up. WWE Real One is actually an anti-WWE page, even though he's WWE Real One with a picture of John Cena and sits there and shits on everything WWE does. And if he doesn't agree with what you say in a negative way about any of his people, he blocks you. I don't give him the benefit of the doubt. I've already blocked him, so fuck him. But to go with number 4, number 3 is AIR Gold, who's another AEW account who also does the same thing. You can't speak logic to these people. They don't know any better. They're AEW fans. They haven't even come to the realization that Raj, Sheldon, Howard, and Leonard are the 4 pillars of AEW. But he's fucking awful. They're both fucking awful. I can't stand either one of them. I had to block them both. They're that bad. Number 2, I'm going with Sean Sapp, Ross, fuck, and basically anybody associated or affiliated with Fightful, minus Denise Salcato. I actually think she is an incredible person, and I hate the fact that she's affiliated with the Fightful family, but everything about Fightful is fucking awful, especially about all the stuff which will get brought up later on in the podcast in a little bit. So, Cousin Jay, that was 2 through 10. Who do you think the brainless one thinks is the worst person?
I mean, it's Dave Meltzer. Like a bullet.
Dave
to the top.
Fucking Meltzer. I am sorry. The man is just taking all these L's. I think he's senile. He's got to be. I think him and Biden have the same issues. Neither one of them is intelligent. This is a man that said, yeah, I don't know why they took the title off of Trick Williams, because Trick Williams is so over with the fans, and he's got a great way of relating to the fans and all this stuff. I get what they're trying to do with Joe Hendry, a contracted TNA star. He thinks that they took the title off of Trick Williams because Joe Hendry's going to end up fighting Ethan Page for the NXT championship.
So in the chat, it's been specifically asked, what did you think of the promo between Henry and Ethan Page on NXT?
I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. I love NXT. I've been tuning in every single week. I'm still a little disappointed that Wesley turned on Zach Wentz and Trey Miguel of the Rascals, but it was so beautifully done. That promo was great. I love the fact that they're building towards a good story. It looks like we're going to be getting Wesley versus Joe Hendry versus Pete Dunne for the #1 contendership for Ethan Page's NXT championship. They have been killing it on all cylinders. This partnership with TNA has been absolutely aces. But to get back to my whole Dave Meltzer thing, Dave Meltzer said that they took the title off of Trick Williams, even though he was so over and gets a reaction from the fans. This was the same guy that was saying, I don't understand why Trick Williams is a champion in NXT because he is still green in the ring. I'm going to add on more to Dave Meltzer for this in a little bit, but he gets my #1. He is the absolute worst possible thing about the internet wrestling community.
All right.
That's all my notes for this week.
Yeah.
I guess that means
Chris Brown said, by the way, he bitches at #3 every day on Twitter.
It's not even worth it. I even tried going after WWE Real One by saying your freaking name is stupid because you're an AEW blower and you don't even have AEW Real One, which I tried finding and somebody actually had it. I don't know why anybody want to be associated with AEW Real One. That's so stupid.
Ooh.
And all I was gonna do was I was gonna turn that into an account where I just shat on freaking AEW all the time, like he shits on WWE all the time.
Yeah.
But there would be no difference from my tweets, just the name. But anyway, it is time for our good,
our bad,
and our brainless.
All right,
Cousin Jay, what do you got for your good this week?
You know, as much as I wanted to make it Swerve Strickland and meeting him, I have to go with my boss. My boss, Elise, for my birthday, got me that.
That's very cool. That is a really cool piece right there. I like that.
So I was like going, you know what? Yeah. Meeting Swerve was awesome, but she was like, where do you think you're going to hang? Are you going to put in your office? I'm like, I think it'll be podcast material. So
is Elise, you said?
Yep.
Is she on the same level as your former boss, Kristen?
I'd say it's very close. Very close.
And I speak very highly of your old boss, Kristen. She was an absolute sweetheart.
Yes.
I still have the shirt she gave me.
Nice.
Yes. But
all right. What was your good this week, brainless one?
Like I've said before, and I'll say it again, nobody, and I mean nobody, is excluded from my good, bad, and brainless, no matter what it is. Cousin Jay, I'm giving it to you.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you got your picture taken with Swerve Strickland and you got to meet him and you got to hold the World Heavyweight Championship for AEW. I was very happy to see that. The picture was great. You and Swerve, it was a great picture. You with the title was a great picture. And it brought so much joy to my heart that you were able to hold a championship that the fuckheads and their fuckhead little fuckhead friend were never able to hold. So, which means that you are more of a pillar once again for AEW than the Bucks and Jungle Turd. So, Cousin Jay, you holding the AEW World Championship and getting your picture taken with Swerve got my good for this week. I loved it. It was great.
I love when that happens.
Yeah, it finally happened for me. Woo! What do you got for your bad?
You know, that there were a couple of things that I was thinking about here, but I have to come back to Hikaru Shida is a very good talent, but should not be getting a title shot after she lost to the person who is the number one contender just a couple of weeks ago. So Sasha could put the title on the line for somebody who is not, who lost recently,
right,
to a person who is not the title holder. So just stupid booking right there by Tony Khan.
I can't argue that.
All right.
My bad goes to the dastardly Voldemort and his health. It is just bad that we're seeing Vince McMahon deteriorate after what he's meant to the wrestling industry. I am not one of those ones that are going to throw stones at people because they live in glass houses. Not to say that in any of the skeletons that I may or may not have in my closet or anything remotely close to the Vince McMahon ones, but I'm also one of those ones that I'm not going to sit there and just absolutely eviscerate this poor guy, because as a wrestling fan, he is very much important to my wrestling fandom. So I have to kind of I'm not saying I overlook this stuff, but to see him deteriorating health-wise is not good. So it's my bad for this week.
All right.
Hate the fact that I just put that freaking verbal lingo bullshit, whatever it was. It's that Bristol Eastern education. We'll just blame it on that.
All right. In the chat, Chris Brown is saying his good was the Henry Page promo. The bad was the passing of Afa, and his brainless is Tony Khan being petty by making a token appearance with All In Texas before going back to London, even given that London has been a WWE domain for nearly 40 years. Tony's earth-sized ego can't take it. Hey, you know what? Vince was invading territories back in the day, and there were agreements between the different people. Tony's not violating any sort of agreement. So, I mean, if he wants to try to go to London, fine. If he wants to go to Texas, like, there are enough wrestling fans out there to support them all.
I understand, but Tony Khan also shouldn't be going out and saying that, WWE is only going to London because AEW has been doing All In there.
Yeah.
Like, you've been a wrestling fan for as long as you have, Tony Khan, and you don't realize that WWE did Wembley in 1992 with the Bulldog and the Hitman in the main event, and Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart with the smelly, the kid with the very distinct odor, who died before they could create the song. And so Hogan's like, I'm bringing Simon Cowell to the United States.
Yeah.
You're brainless.
I think we're probably going to share this one. Dave Meltzer reporting on the death of Afa. I don't know if it was a full day, but almost a day before he passed. This is not quite Kurt Schilling, Tim Wakefield stuff, but it's not far off. You, like, for something like that, make sure the person is no longer with us when you're going to make a post like that. And, like, he had to retract himself, like, 20 minutes after he posted it. Oh, and it forced a family who is dealing with a loved one who is in final stages of life having to put out a damn statement because he was irresponsible as all hell reporting on something that was not factually true.
It could have been Meltzer. I kind of expanded it to dirt sheets in general. just because every single one of these dirt sheets were the ones that posted. It wasn't just Dave Meltzer. It was Fightful. It was all these other wrestling pages. I didn't post anything because I didn't see anything about the passing of Afa until right before the podcast, and then I'd rather say something about it, especially because it happened right before the podcast. But
Right.
The fact that Meltzer came out and was backtracking for what he said, my favorite was Sean Ross Sapp, which is why I came up with this list, was that Sean Ross Sapp was coming out and playing the victim because he's like, oh, I misinterpreted what somebody said. So it's like, dude, his son came out and said that his father was getting to that final point, and you guys are all out there because you all want to be the first ones to announce that the poor dude's dead. So then his daughter has to come out and correct this shit. Don't believe what all of the sites are saying. Don't listen to these dirt sheets. You need to get it from the source of the family. He is very much still with us. At a very trying and troubling time for a family that they're about to lose a family member. And you fucking assholes who call yourselves dirt sheet pages are the ones that are causing this issue. So for me, it's not even just Meltzer. It's just all dirt sheets together. And the fact that fucking Sean fuckhead Sapp, I fucking hate that fucking little shit, is fucking playing the victim. Fuck you. That's why you all get my brainless for this week.
All right.
Anyway, if you like what you've seen, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter X, follow us on Instagram. I don't have a signal for that. And subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKSD, F and Marks. If you'd like, follow and subscribe to us. We will do the same back. That has been, was, and always will be our...
And set up notifications so that when we are live, you will be notified that we are live, whether it's on the Facebooks, whether it's on the X, or whether it's on the YouTubes. So you could join in with talking about our favorite sport we all love to hate, professional wrestling.
In the New York Jets.
Yeah.
That's another sport I hate, the Jets. But anyway,
yep, I guess that's it, right?
I think we covered all our bases. We got all our notes in there, our good, bad, and brainless. We did the top 10 list.
Yeah.
Again, speedy recovery to F and Mark's Hall of Famer, R-Truth.
Yeah.
I hope that you come back stronger than ever. I mean, you're basically, you look exactly like you did, 20 some odd years ago, and you're in incredible shape, R-Truth. I cannot wait to see you get back out there because you are an absolute treasure. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I cannot wait to see my second favorite F and Mark's Hall of Famer in the wrestling industry back in a wrestling ring. However, it is not time for that F and Mark's Hall of Famer. No. This F and Mark's Hall of Famer would like to say something to us. Well, firstly, Brainless one, really quickly, I am getting pretty tired with the fact that I am now sharing this podcast with another guy, another wrestler that goes by the name Joe H. The only one that matters is Joe Hennig, also known as me. And who am I? Well, I am the guy who is going to tell you that today, April 16th of 2024.
Or August 16th.
Oh my God, August 16th of 2024, at an incredible 3,491 days, I, F and Mark's Hall of Famer, is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
Down, 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 down.
And just like I said when I did the Good, Bad, and Brainless, nobody is excluded from the Good, Bad, and Brainless. I am now the heavy favorite heading into the clubhouse because I couldn't even tell what month it was.
April, August, they both start with A.
Yeah. And the sad part is, I was like, is it the 16th? And I'm like, yes, I think it's the 16th. Just go with it. And I was like, I was waiting for you to go, no, it's the 17th. And I'm like, shit. Then you're like, no, it's August. I'm like, great. But anyway, for episode 370 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the F and Marks.
I'm Jay. He is.
Oh, I am definitely the brainless one. Make sure you mark out.
With your guac out. See you, everybody.
Thanks for
Have a
tuning
good
in.
night. Enjoy Smackethtown.
What?
What? Yeah?
But not the Nia Jax ceremony. Yeah?
I mean, that could turn into something good.
Good and terrible.
Mm.
Yeah.